Well, let's talk about what Xbox is rumored to not be doing, maybe doing, could be doing, and a lot of other game news stories this week. Welcome to the Game News Show. We're live on Twitch. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, thanks for being here. If you're live on Twitch, also thanks for being here. All right, let's get to the game news because we got quite a bit of opinions to share and things to talk about. All right, last week, if you watched the State of Play, we got a trailer for Sonic Shadow Generations coming in 2024 autumn. The trailer looks cool. It's a remaster of Sonic Generations with Shadow content thrown in, all new levels and stuff featuring Shadow the Hedgehog. I just wanted to share it here because I didn't cover it much last week. It was a rumor last week and now it's official. I think the branding is weird, but I think it ties to Sonic 3 coming out this year as well, the movie, which will be very shadow heavy. So that's kind of neat. And also there's some stuff coming to Sonic Superstars that will feature Shadow as well. So yeah, it's like the year of Shadow, kind of like we had the year of Luigi that didn't really mean anything. It's the year of Shadow, but it doesn't really mean anything. I'm actually looking forward to this. Sonic Generations was such a good game. I'm wondering what improvements will be made to justify like a whole remaster. But we'll find out as time goes. Looks like it's optimized for current gen hardware, which means probably nice frame rates and maybe better lighting. I don't know. I thought the game was pretty good though. If you play it on the Series S or X, that's the current. Your Shadow sounds too ominous. Yeah, well, it's what it is. But the Series S and X version is the current like best way to play. It's the 360 version with those enhancements made by those consoles. But this will be the definitive way. Much like Sonic Colors Ultimate was the definitive way to play that. This will follow suit. Yeah, so that's cool. All right, let's move on before I linger here. All right, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. There's a demo out. They had a state of play, just going over details of that, and the game looks phenomenal. I have yet to play any of Final Fantasy VII Remake or Rebirth or any of it because I don't have a PlayStation right now, and that's on the goals for the years to get a PlayStation 5. But right now, I just think this game looks great. But part of me kind of wants this whole Final Fantasy VII Remake to just tie into Kingdom Hearts and like justify bringing back the Final Fantasy characters in Kingdom Hearts after Kingdom Hearts 3 didn't feature really any, and people were disappointed with that. But yeah, this game looks amazing. So go check out the demo on the PlayStation Store now. Yeah, it's worth checking out. Apparently there's like a cross like save reward or something like that. Definitely go check it out. All right, got more Twitter things to talk about. Pal World been in the news a lot lately. The biggest third-party Xbox Game Pass launch ever. 7 million players. Insane. We covered Game Pass's crazy numbers last week, but this came out literally like the day after the game news got posted last week, so I figured I'd mention it here. That's super awesome for both, Pal World, Game Pass, maybe considering the news we're about to talk about, but it's really cool. I'm actually really excited for them. Pal World's a lot of fun, and I'm hoping more people get to enjoy it. I want to get back to it very soon. It is a very fun game. All right, let's move. We got techforgamers.com. Multiplayer games dominated single player games in 2023. Yeah, because more people can play free to play games. I don't mean to sound like snarky about it. Like this is just research, I think. Let's look at the highlights. 2023 offered a lot of great highlights in both multiplayer and single player games. However, multiplayer games took the throne over single player games. All right. These highlights are weird because this is an opinion, however, as its own point. Anyway, recent events suggest that the trend will favor multiplayer games more in the coming years. I mean, okay, you got free to play games that are free, that are multiplayer. Those are always going to do better than a $60 or $70 single player game. I think that's just math and ease of access. So that's really cool. Looks like Fortnite dominates in most countries, which is actually kind of surprising. I figured Fortnite was kind of on a backswing and doing good, but kind of petering off again. But hey, good for them. And then Call of Duty, FIFA, the usual titles are dominating the multiplayer space. All right, so let's move on. I just thought it was interesting. It feels kind of obvious, but like when you look at it, it's like, yeah, more people are going to play multiplayer because free to play games exist. And now every studio wants to make a service game, which is honestly, I'm not thrilled about that direction, but we did it to ourselves, guys. We all did it to ourselves. Let's be honest. All right, moving on. Okay, physical sales in Japan near 3 billion. And Tears of the Kingdom was the best-selling game at retail, with the Switch OLED being the best-selling console. This is courtesy of GamesIndustry.biz, which is interesting, but only kind of. Anyway, this was cool because, we just talked about multiplayer games being the most popular globally, but now we have, in Japan, a single-player game and underpowered hardware dominating sales charts. Very interesting, right? More likely is that more free-to-play single players will pop up like Sims 4. Maybe. I could see that. I mean, Genshin and Star Rail are really good free-to-play, mostly single-player experiences. So, there's that too. All right, well, let's look at this one. Total sales of physical game products amounted to 403.8 billion yen, $2.7 billion, from December 26, 2022 to December 31st, 2023. 7.8% increase compared to last year. Tears of the Kingdom was the best-selling game of the year, with 1.9 million box copies shifted since it debuted in May. Super Mario Bros. Wonder was close behind, with 1.5 million box copies sold since its release in October. And then there's some other news in here about sales, and then a breakdown. The Switch OLED being the most popular console being sold with 2.8 million units. I mean, it makes sense. PlayStation 5 came in second at 2.5 million units, with Xbox trailing at a paltry 141,712 units sold, which is more than they've had before, but still not a million, not even a million. So anyway, that's gonna be relevant later. We're gonna get to this. So let's see. Okay, Square Enix coming up here. Square Enix says more and more games either crash and burn or find big success as players throng to a handful of major titles. This is kind of one of those kind of situations, right? Your game is either good or terrible if you go off sales alone, which a lot of these guys are. So this is courtesy, what are we on, Games Radar? Courtesy of Games Radar. As a result of digitization and other technological advances, consumer game content is increasingly sold via downloads rather than physical packages. Monetization methods such as free-to-play, microtransactions, and subscriptions have also given a rise to a greater diversity of business models outside the confines of traditional one-off sales. Moving on, basically, Square wants to branch out, but every step they seem to take to do that results in not the runaway success that other games that are already doing what they're doing but better. And they're not happy about that. They don't want to just be the house that Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest built. They want to be Ubisoft and make a bunch of different types of games. They want to be Activision. I think they should double down on what's working and just find a way. Final Fantasy 14 Online is hugely popular. We're going to talk about that in the next story. But hugely popular, does really well. Double down on the things that are working. Stop trying to branch into areas. This is because, think about Square last year and maybe the year before talking about NFTs and talking about blockchain technology being heavily integrated into upcoming games. Yeah, nobody wants that. Nobody wants an NFT game. Nobody wants to have NFTs related to games because it's a nightmare to work with. It's also pointless. I mean, have you guys checked the values? It's very funny. The values of all these NFTs that sold for like thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars during 2020, 21, and 22 are now like worthless. Who could have seen that coming? It's like people made their money and bailed. But yeah, so Square is taking lots of risks, but I feel like they're really good at RPGs. Kingdom Hearts is fantastic. Say what you will about the series, it's fantastic. Final Fantasy is pretty dang good. It's lasted this long. Some of their other, Dragon Quest and all the little spin-offs do really well. Their online offerings, like, why don't they make a Dragon Quest MMO at this point? The mana games are very popular, but what they do is they don't double down on those things. They wait too many years between these things and then get mad that nobody's buying their games, but they're not making things that people want. Literally, just make the HD 2D version of Chrono Trigger. We want that. You know? Like I just don't understand what Square, like, they complain about doing these things, but then complain that nobody buys the games. It's like they're not making what people want. It's basic capitalism, basic free enterprise. If you don't make what people want, nobody's gonna play it. There might be people playing it just because it says Square Enix, but don't expect the breakaway hits that way. I mean, they could happen. It's just not as likely. But anyway, all right. Square Enix in the news still. Let's talk about our next topic as we move into the Xbox stuff. All right, here's what's weird. Final Fantasy 14, we knew was coming to Xbox finally. Xbox Series X and S will require Game Pass to play when it launches on full. That will be Game Pass Core to just be able to have the online multiplayer aspect of Game Pass, since Xbox Live was just rolled into the Game Pass subscription. Now, that's weird, seeing as how you don't have to have PlayStation Plus to play Final Fantasy 14 on PlayStation. It is also free to start. I think you get to like a level cap and then you pay a subscription, if I understand correctly. So it just seems weird. Hopefully this gets remedied before the game actually launches, but there is an open beta on the way at the end of this month. Let's see. The beta start date. New players can dive into the free trial version of Final Fantasy XIV, which allows you to experience a Realm Reborn, Heaven's Ward, and Stormblood expansions up to level 70 without playtime restrictions. So there you go. From Wednesday, February 21st, all the way to, okay, just from then. And then at the end of the month, I think the game actually launches officially. But you have to be a brand new player. Existing players will have to wait till the official launch. And there's no crossplay yet because the beta is literally just testing the Xbox ecosystem and is for Xbox players. And the latest DLC will launch, I think, at the same time this goes live fully on Xbox out of beta. But it's weird that, like, you have to have Xbox Game Pass to play. It's a weird decision. I don't know if that's an Xbox decision or a Square decision, but it needs to be fixed because that's not parity. That's just weird that you have that restriction on one platform. But maybe that'll get figured out before the launch of the game, and that's just the way it's working right now, and they haven't finalized those details yet. All right. Now, let's get to some of the heavy stuff with Xbox and rumors. And I will warn you guys, this is getting silly. And this is all rumor and speculation, and we have no concrete details. Just a lot of people talking. All right. So, VGC news. Microsoft is reportedly considering bringing Gears of War to PlayStation. Okay. According to Giant Bomb's Jeff Grubb, who was elaborating on recent claims, Microsoft is working on a new initiative to release more Xbox exclusive games on other console platforms. Over the weekend, it was claimed that Bethesda Starfield and its upcoming Indiana Jones and the Great Circle could be released on PS5, in addition to previously rumored Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves ports, which is kind of what kicked this off. We had Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves rumored heavily to be coming to Switch and PlayStation in some capacity. I could see that with Hi-Fi Rush. Sea of Thieves, maybe. It's kind of weird because, like, Sea of Thieves is kind of a selling point for Xbox. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Sea of Thieves, but there are lots of people that enjoy that game. There's reasons it's continuing to be updated with new content and new things and maintained. It is obviously popular. So getting it into more people's hands on more people's machines makes sense to a certain degree. Uh they're planning at one point to publicly explain its new initiative at the end of February, but because of all this that exploded over the weekend with these rumors and sharing of rumors, that it looks like the timeline might be moved up. So let's look at some other discussion. We'll go here first. Starfield is reportedly coming to PS5 along with other Xbox exclusives. Well, okay, now we have Gears of War, Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, and Starfield possibly not being Xbox exclusive anymore. A lot of people are just really frustrated by this, and there's a lot of weirdness going on the internet. I don't understand what Xbox is doing, except I do from a business perspective. So it's a huge change though, because if this happens, who buys an Xbox, right? Like that's my initial reaction. Who's gonna buy an Xbox console if all of these games are just on PlayStation? Even with a timed exclusivity. I mean, I can wait. Like I don't have time to play games as soon as they come out. Not in any meaningful way. Very few will I get through as soon as they launch anyway. Officially, Phil Spencer said this last year, I believe. Game exclusivity is decided on a case-by-case basis, but it's looking like that may be ending. That might be a shareholder decision. That could be a number of things. So we have Idle Sloth here on X, quoting xCloud Tim Dog, who is a huge Xbox creator. Idle Sloth is also an Xbox creator community member. They talk about Xbox a whole lot. Very, very good accounts if you're in the Microsoft space, specifically for Xbox or gaming space. They have a lot of good opinions. They have a lot of weird takes. They're fun to listen to. Anyway, so he has a list of explanations here. Tim has heard Call of Duty may not be coming to Game Pass. Well, we were told that it's probably not going to happen initially and still in the works, if at all. So that makes sense. Hardware sales have not met the projected sales, and CFO got spooked. So that's the chief financial officer for Microsoft as a whole, is looking at this whole situation. We just spent a few billion on Activision Blizzard, and nobody's buying Xboxes yet. That's very short-sighted, my opinion. I'm not an expert here, but you just closed this deal in October last year and then put your consoles on sale, but there was no new release tied to that merger that said, hey, you should buy an Xbox over a PlayStation because Activision. Like there was none of that. It was literally business as usual for Activision, business as usual for Xbox. And then that's kind of the next point. Last 3 months of last year, so October to December, Microsoft had consoles for $350 and no one cared. Well, you didn't give anybody a reason to care. Starfield was a bust. Let's just call it what it is. It was a bust. I think it was overhyped, underdelivered, majorly. It did not. Watching people play it, it did not look fun. It looked confusing and like it was just missing features. It looked incomplete, which is a bummer. A lot of games launch that way, and that needs to stop. Microsoft has been promising really big exclusives, really big releases, and they fumble the ball almost every single time. And I say this as someone who buys an Xbox first and waits to get a PlayStation. I don't understand what I'm doing anymore with my money. Why am I still giving it to Microsoft if this is just the norm, right? So they go on to say Xbox One was more wanted than Series consoles, which I would believe because you couldn't get a Series X for so long, so those people bought PlayStations. And then the Series S is incredibly cheap. I mean, I like mine, but my Series X is in the living room. It goes underplayed because I'm in my office more often. So, like, if I'm just going to play Xbox games and I'm generally streaming them, like, that works for my specific use case, but I don't imagine it's not that unique. More people probably are buying Series S's just because they're cheaper and an easy way to get into, the Xbox ecosystem if you're interested in what Xbox has on offer. They said the hardware is dead and they're seeing declines in hardware year over year. I don't know about that one because they said the hardware has been up this past year, but we'll see. Tim heard from someone at Microsoft that you may not like Xbox, when they get Activision, they want return on investment, they want ROI, which again is what I talked about. Like, they're wanting to see quick turnaround. So they almost want to make their however many billions they spent right back. That's going to take time. He heard that Xbox has an insane showcase with tons of games, but everyone's going to be saying asterisk, which means like timed exclusives, 3 months, 6 months, a year. Probably launching on Game Pass day one, but coming to PlayStation soon. You know, I mean, honestly, I would hate to see that, but that's going to kill all the momentum Microsoft could have had. And then I found this interesting. Leaks happened because a Microsoft employee who doesn't want this to happen leaked it so that there would be a public outcry. Microsoft now has no problem buying more and more companies if in the future if all games go to all platforms, which makes sense. Suddenly they're not competitive. They're just putting their games everywhere. Tim thinks they will go all digital with ads on Game Pass, pre-roll or at the end of the chapter, e.g. like a dragon. I'm not really sure what that means, but I would hate if games on Game Pass had ads all of a sudden. When Sega did their Sega Forever initiative and made like all the Sonic games free to play, and every time you died or changed levels, you complete a level, you got an ad, and that was awful, and I hated it, and it just wasn't fun to play Sonic anymore. So I don't like that direction. But again, the higher ups at Microsoft want their billions back. Those shareholders have to go, hey, you just spent $1 billion, billions of dollars on Activision Blizzard. Where's the return on that? Where's our reason for doing that? So everybody's seeing all this. There's all this discussion about Xbox is dead and they've betrayed all the fans and it's a problem. And I agree. I agree that is what it looks like. And that may be what it is. We don't know concretely yet. But a lot of credible people are talking about these rumors. So Phil Spencer posts on X yesterday, February 5th, 2024. We're listening and we hear you. We've been planning a business update event for next week where we look forward to sharing more details with you about our vision for the future of Xbox. Stay tuned. And there's a lot to unpack here, because this part, I believe that Phil Spencer and a lot of the Xbox core leadership people are definitely listening, and they hear what the fans are saying, what dedicated fans are saying. They hear what the critics are saying. They hear all of this noise. They've got to filter out and see what's worth listening to. But the business update for next week was probably slated for the week after next, and was maybe supposed to have a different tone to it than what they'll probably deliver next week. So what we know is that Xbox will give us some info next week. They may be pulling out of the hardware market entirely, which wouldn't be surprising. But we might still have Xbox hardware. I wouldn't mind an all digital, like super beefy Xbox with that redesign that was leaked last year. I'd be okay with that. Most of the reason I like the Xbox ecosystem is because their storefront is the Steam of consoles. Like, it just works. All my games, even my older games, still work. I have access to them. Yes, it's a little, it's shady because digital stuff can be removed from your account, whether or not you want it to be. There's a lot of questions that come up with this. I just hope we have some answers next week, because it's kind of a slap in the face to the longtime fans like myself. I wouldn't take it personally. Business is business, and businesses have to make money. But there are a lot of people that do take it personally, that support Xbox because they grew up with it, because they like it. And it is a bit of a bummer that decisions that were made that we were told were going to benefit everybody aren't benefiting everybody. You know what I mean? Like, if we lose, the console, we lose Xbox hardware, then it's like, well, everybody just gets a PC and a PlayStation, probably a Switch too, and that's the stack. Microsoft can still have a knockout PC gaming business. Game Pass probably wouldn't exist in the capacity that it does, because who's bringing their games to a platform that has no home if it's just cloud based and PC based. Like I see a lot of negatives in the shift long term. Short term, there might be some really good gains. I just think in the long term, a lot of people are going to be really disappointed. Microsoft might just bail on gaming as a whole. The industry does get more and more expensive. Who knows what the future holds? So, with that, the last bit of news I want to share is an interesting take. I like this website. I just came across it recently. Timeextension.com focuses mostly on retro gaming, fighting gaming, just classic gaming stuff, emulation, minis, modern hardware that works on retro consoles to like modernize like controls and stuff. Just all around a cool look. So they did a feature to make sense of Xbox multi-platform rumors. We need to only look to the past. And this does feel like the moments leading up to when Sega stopped making hardware after the Dreamcast, pulled out of the hardware market entirely, and went into being a third-party publisher. And that was fine. It was rough. But very shortly after that decision, we got GameCube versions of Sonic Adventure 2 DX. We got Sonic Heroes, which, say what you will, the game was fun. Sega really could focus more on making good games, better games. And that hasn't always worked. You know, we did get Sonic 06. You know, will we get an even worse Halo title than Halo 5? And I mean just the single player. The multiplayer was fine. But, you know, will we see the comeback that kind of Sega has worked towards with Xbox? Or does Xbox as a brand just disappear entirely? I have no idea. All I can say is next week we'll find out for sure. And hopefully we get the answers we're looking for or hope for. I hope nobody's like super disappointed by that point. But that is what it is. And that's it for this week's Game News Show. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I don't know why that transition didn't work like it did last week, but it is what it is. OBS be doing weird stuff. If you guys are watching on YouTube after the fact, thanks for being here. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments, do you like Xbox? Do you want it to go full third party? I don't think anybody really does. Reduced competition is a problem. But I appreciate you all being here. If you're watching on Twitch, we're about to play Genshin Impact some more for that sweet, sweet sponsor deal that we got going on this week. And yeah, that'll do it. So I'm going to go play games now. Love you all. Bye.